What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at Pepino Cuevas, Mr. Knockout, and Thomas the Hitman Motor City Cobra Hearns. This was a fascinating fight. Unbelievable night of boxing. It was when Thomas Hearns had knocked out Pepino Cuevas in the second round to earn a WBA welterweight championship strap. You couldn't ask for a better night of boxing, because I followed Thomas Hearns' amateur career. And I couldn't wait to see Thomas Hearns get a title shot. He had lost certain fights that he just wasn't ready for as an amateur, such as Ronnie Shields. He would even lose to Aaron the Hawk Pryor. But he wasn't knocking out fighters as an amateur. I believe he only had a handful of knockouts. But when he turned professional, Emmanuel Stewart had him settle down, popped a jab, and said, we're going to have to start getting some of these men out of here if you want to make money. So Thomas Hearns and Pepino Cuevas would meet on the night of August 2nd, 1980. It would be at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. Saturday night. Let's take a look at that fight. Now, Pepino Cuevas was born December 27, 1957 in Santa Thomas de los Palantos, Mexico. It would be near Mexico City. He stood 5 foot 8 inches and weighed 135 to 155 and a half pounds. He had total bouts of 50 fights, 35 wins, 31 knockouts, 15 losses. He had no draws and no contests. Now that's fascinating, because he did most of his destruction with his own two fists. Pepino Cuevas would begin his professional career in 1972. He would win the Mexican Welterweight Championship on September 27, 1975 in Mexico City. He would knock out Jose Palanos in 10 rounds. Cervantes would win the WBA Welterweight Championship from Angel Espada. And this fight would take place July 17, 1976, with a TKO in the second round in Mexicali, Mexico. Now, 1976 was some year. Yeah, a lot of great fights that took place in 1976. But this fight stood out because it was an up-and-coming welterweight champion on the horizon in Pepino Cuevas. Now, Pepino Cuevas would defend his welterweight championship belt 11 times. And he would fight great fighters such as Miguel Angel Camano. And he was from Santa Rosa La Parte, which is in Argentina. He would face Billy Backus from Canastota, New York, hometown of one of the best middleweight and welterweight champions, Carmen Basilio. He'd be in there with Hal Weston out of New York. He had a fighting record of 29-9 at the end of his career. He would face Pete Renzani from Sacramento, California. He would win 59 and lose 8 in his boxing career. He would fight Clyde Gray out of Ontario, Canada. Like I said, Angel Espada out of Puerto Rico. Scott Clark, Randy Shields Randy Shields was from North Hollywood, California. And he would get fits to fighters in the amateurs. Very good fighter was Randy Shields. He would face Roger Stafford. He would lose to him. Roberto Duran, lose to him. He'd be in there with Jorge Vaca towards the end of his career, and he would lose to him. Pepino Cuevas was introduced to the Boxing Hall of Fame in 1996, and the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2002. Now, what most people don't know about Pepino Cuevas, he was perhaps one of the greatest welterweight punchers in the entire history of the game. Outside of Ray Robinson, and that's saying a lot. Because Ray Robinson was knocking out middleweights in sparring as a lightweight. As a welterweight, he was just punishing fighters. And Pepino Cuevas was close to the punching power of a young Ray Robinson. He was breaking bones and fracturing ribs in sparring. Unbelievable. Thomas the Hitman Hearns, known as the Motor City Cobra. He was born October 18, 1958 in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, he fought out of Detroit, Michigan, and he would be given the key to that city. And he stood 5 foot 1 inch. He weighed 144 to 191 pounds. He was managed by himself later on in his career, but he was always trained by Emmanuel Stewart. Towards the end of his career, he would be trained outside of that camp. He would have a fighting record of 61-5-1 with 48 stunning knockouts. Thomas Hearns was considered, pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters of all times. He would win titles in 6 different weight divisions. He would win the welterweight championship strap in 1980. We're going through that fight now with Pepino Cuevas. He would win titles from the welterweight to the cruiserweight division. Then he would win a championship in defense with Andrew Maynard. Andrew Maynard was a 1988 Olympic gold medalist. He would defend his title against Andrew Maynard. He would win the WBA light heavyweight championship from Virgil Hill. Virgil Hill was undefeated coming into that fight. He was the 1984 Olympic gold medalist in Los Angeles, was Virgil Hill. And Hearns would face Virgil Hill June 3rd, 1991. 12-round victory in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was at that fight. He would win the IBO Cruiserweight Championship from Uriah Grant. Now, he would lose that fight. And most observers, as myself, gave him that victory. He would fight Nate Miller. Nate Miller was from Philadelphia. He would fight him for the WBU Cruiserweight Championship in Manchester, England, April 10th, 1999. The NABF and the WBO Cruiserweight Championship from Dan Ward, 1994. And the Super Middleweight Championship, from a Michael Elijah Day in Atlantic City. I was at that fight. This was April 28th, 1990. WBO NABF Super Middleweight Championship, James the Heat Kitchen. Most observers thought that Hearns lost that fight. That was on November 4th, 1988. WBC WBO Super Middleweight Championship, June 12th, 1989, Las Vegas, Nevada. 12-round draw. Sugar Ray Leonard. I was at that fight. Juan Domingo Rodan, WBC Middleweight Championship strap. October 29th, 1987. The WBC Light Heavyweight Championship strap from Dennis Andres. I was at that fight. Outstanding. 1981. He would face the great Sugar Ray Leonard. It would be for the WBA and the WBC Unification Welterweight Championship. That was one of the biggest fights at that time. That fight went 14 rounds. Davey Pearl was the referee. And I got to tell you, that fight is the epitome boxing match. One of the greatest welterweight fights of all times. He's being there with Roberto Duran, knock him out in 2 rounds. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, 1985. I was at that fight. And I got to tell you, one of the greatest middleweight championship fights of all time. 3-round affair. You can't ask for better. Between 2 outstanding fighters. But August 2nd, 1980, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, as I stated, would be in the ring with Pepino Cuevas at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan. Hearns was 21 years of age. He stood 6 foot. He had a 78-inch reach. And what was amazing about him, he could punch. Cuevas was 22 at the time. He stood 5 foot 8 inches, and he had a 70-inch reach, 8 inches shorter than Hearns. He had 24 knockouts. Hearns had 26 knockouts. And that was a fight I couldn't miss. Because I knew someone was going to get knocked out within 3 rounds. I came close. Hearns knocked out Pepino Cuevas in 2 rounds. And Pepino Cuevas did one of the greatest stinky leg dances in the entire history of the game. And Hearns hit him as he was going down. And as I said earlier, he was not a knockout puncher in the amateurs. But Thomas Hearns was special. He was one of the fighters that really wanted to become champion. So when I see Thomas Hearns, I never forget that night with Pepino Cuevas on August 2nd, 1980. It was a Saturday night. I was a young man. But I was just as enthused of boxing as I am today, as I was in 1980. And I remember that fight like yesterday. And when Thomas Hearns knocked out Pepino Cuevas, that would be Emanuel Stewart's first world champion. And Hearns was picked up and walked around and he couldn't believe he was champion of the world. And they already knew the next prize would be Sugar Ray Leonard, because Sugar Ray Leonard was scheduled. Well, he wasn't quite scheduled, but it was talk of him fighting Pepino Cuevas. I don't know how that fight would have turned out. Would have loved to have seen it. But I can tell you, Thomas Hearns and Pepino Cuevas was a special night. And it's because of that night we were treated to the unification match between Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard in 1981. So thanks for reliving this fight with me. One of the fights that I will never forget. Right here in the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Thomas Hearns, Pepino Cuevas. Salute to these great fighters. Salute to my subscribers. Salute to a great night of boxing.